You've got to go to 1982, the year I was born, and the year the Ford Ranger was also born. Basically, the vehicle started with the oil crisis. America needed something slightly more economical to run, and that is the case now in 2025 because the Ranger has gone plug-in hybrid. And I've gone to Iceland, not where mums go, actual Iceland, to check out the vehicle in detail here today. I'll let you know, is there any differences between the diesel version of this? What's it like off-road, the towing capabilities, and is it something you should consider, or is it a vehicle that is being used to make Ford's carbon footprint lighter? Welcome to Nobby on Cars. For those of you watching in Ireland, no, it is not ESB Network's colour. It's actually called Cyber Orange. But the ESB could definitely buy a load of these vehicles and not have to wrap them because they would be in the perfect colour. The promise from Ford in this vehicle is no compromise, so it will still tow 3.5 tonne. It still has a payload of 1 tonne, although it's slightly under that. It's powered by a 2.3 engine. You get a range of about 43 kilometers, so they say. That's without anything on the payload or towing anything also. But Ford say 50% of Ranger customers can do that round trip on 43 kilometers. But I do wonder from driving it today, and it's very efficient and it's very quiet, and it was using barely any fuel to get to where we are today. But we used a 100% range of the battery in a trip of about 30 kilometers, and that was without towing. So terms and conditions possibly apply. On the front of the vehicle, still a Ranger, as you know. So this version launched in 2021. You've got the daytime running strip lights down here, the nice nose on it, and yeah, nothing really much has changed on the outside of the vehicle. On this side of the Ranger, you know it's a PHEV version because it says PHEV here. There's side steps, the Wild Track badging on the side of it, roof rails, the double cab, and the load on the side. The other difference that has changed obviously here is this is where your power goes into the vehicle with the plug-in hybrid option. So you'll be able to do it overnight very, very easily. There's also a nice loophole with revenue since January. If you have a charger in your premises or your house, which is your business premises, you can share your charger with your staff as long as they have access to it and there's zero BIK in it. I'll put a link down to that little revenue loophole that maybe not everybody knows about in the comment section. Also, for getting access to the vehicle, yes, obviously there's a step on the rear, but you also can step here to climb in and just reach for tools and bits that you have tucked away under the load cover. And actually, there are some great benefits of the plug-in hybrid when it comes to tools. 11.8 kilowatt hour is the net size of the battery capacity, obviously adding a little bit of weight to an already heavy vehicle. Leaf spring suspension setup, that hasn't changed, no major tweaks to this, and it generally rides pretty well as a Ranger does on normal road conditions. When it gets off road it gets a little bit choppy, but I'm actually driving the passenger Land Cruiser this week back in Ireland, and back to back on the same kind of decent tarmac roads, there's very little in them. You won't get the PHEV version on the Raptor, so that obviously has the different suspension setup, but on this it seems to be business as usual. As I mentioned, towing capacity has not been compromised in this vehicle because that is the case with a lot of plug-in and obviously EV, but that just wasn't going to be a runner for the Ranger, so it still can tow 3.5 tonnes, 697 newton meters of torque, so there is lots of torque, although the gross payload is actually 940 kilos, so you need to figure out if that's going to work for you, particularly if you're watching this in the UK. Also, the other thing that's relevant for the Irish market is you still can't claim the fuel back for this being a commercial vehicle that isn't diesel. So that is something the government really needs to legislate for rather than Ford. Ford are bringing the horse to water but can't make you drink it, essentially. So as you've seen probably in other Rangers, this button here opens up the shutter area. Now you can get up to 6.9 kilowatt output. So today Ford showed us how you can use a saw for cutting wood, for powering any kind of tools. Two options here for plugging in power, and also I like that they've put a handy little looped holder for the Type 2 charging cable over here. So also this divider climb up onto it is easy enough. And I saw this before on an Amarok, and I thought that's actually a great idea. It's not on this, but it would be handy just for being able to measure distances. But you know, you can't have everything. Another benefit, Ford say, of customers and feedback from customers is the fact that the Ranger is a vehicle that gets them to work, powers their tools, gets them home again, but also can do the family stuff, the weekend trips with the family. So it's a kind of a multi-purpose vehicle essentially. And with that in mind, there's two Isofix seats in the back, there's an armrest, keep people happy, and for charging the kids' devices on the go. And also there is a 2.3 kilowatt output for a plug also in the back of the Ranger. And there's reasonable space for your feet, depending obviously on how tall your driver is, but certainly a 4 family or even a 5 family unit will be able to use this vehicle at the weekend. Vertically challenged younger people in your life, there's things like handles and stuff, so getting in and out of the vehicle should be relatively easy for them. So you got an E 4-wheel drive mode, still as easy to configure down here, so your 4 low and your 4 high, just quick turn of the dial here. In the plug-in hybrid now, so there's EV now, there's EV later. So what that essentially means is you can drive it in pure EV mode up to a range of 43 kilometers, and it is kind of weird. A big enough vehicle, unless you're watching this in America and then you're like, that's not a pickup truck, but for Europe it is. So it's kind of weird just moving around in silence in this vehicle. But then if you need to have power for later, as in EV power, you can use the 2.3 engine to charge it. Now a lot of brands are not letting you do that anymore, but there's obviously just a sense of, in a vehicle like this, whether you need to be in a low emission zone later on or what it is. And also there's a certain sense of smugness, because anytime I have these vehicles, and when inevitably you're going to be doing the school run, you feel like you're getting tuts from people. But if you can drive this in silence, in 0 emissions around the school, you're kind of going, yeah, well, nothing to see here, is there? Best of both worlds, but you will obviously use a lot of fuel. That is the most inefficient way to charge an EV or a PHEV, is by using the engine, but it can be done. This huge vertical screen is still here in the Ford. Cup holders, all the practical stuff, you know, again, the things to do the morning coffee on the way to a job, whatever it is. There's a split glove box, so up here you have a little bit of space. You've got a flat dashboard for throwing clipboards and stuff. You can't get the steering wheel that folds out like the Transit, so you can work on a laptop. That was something that, again, Ford got feedback from Transit drivers, and they said, what would make your life better? And they were like, well, if I could just eat my lunch or use a laptop on the steering wheel. But anyway, look, it's not in this vehicle. Wireless charging plate down here, the 10-speed shift for the gears, and the armrest all complete the process. And there's lots of wipeable surfaces, but it doesn't feel like they've skimmed either. So it's still a very nice place to sit, but somewhere that if you do get cement and muck and bits on it, you're going to be able to clean and life will be fine. On the screen you get the climate control bits and all the usuals that never leave the bottom, and you can heat yourself up, and there's a heated steering wheel, all those comfort things. It's not like when men were men. It's nice to have these features these days. The camera system is pretty handy, so when you click onto this screen, yes, obviously you get a reversing camera and all that stuff, but if you're going to be towing something, it's very, very handy. So look at this. For example, you hit the tow bar button and it gives you a view of the actual tow bar, an overview. So you can see if you're hitched up. Obviously you're going to physically do this, but if you're getting help from somebody, the same as the side shot from the front and the rear of the vehicle. So you just get a multitude of different angles and configurations. When I say we've extensively tested this vehicle off-road today, I really mean it. We went up the steepest of inclines, we tested hill descent control, the different mud and slippery modes, there's ice and snow modes, and it's all pretty easy to do with this central jog wheel, whether it's 4 low or high. Just gets on with it. It's pretty foolproof to set up, and all obviously electronically controlled in this day and age. You can charge the car, as I mentioned, on the move. If you do that, you're talking about 12 litres per 100 kilometres easily. If you use the hybrid mode, so a mix of battery and petrol, you'll get about 3 litres per 100 kilometres from my experience today. And then when that depletes, if you're just using the petrol engine, you're talking somewhere between 8 and 9 litres per 100 kilometres. It's not that a diesel Ranger doesn't use fuel, of course it does. You're probably looking at sort of 8 to 9 there. But all that said, you still can't claim the VAT back on petrol in Ireland. So that needs to change for vehicles like this to be more of a thing. All the torque means it really does shift. There's no issue there whatsoever. And for an off-road vehicle, its manners on normal roads are actually, I'd almost say, impeccable. Pickup trucks are choppy because without anything in the payload area, they just aren't the best on smooth road conditions, and you find yourself kind of just bobbing up and down and around. Because this has the battery sitting in the rear, it actually helps it. It's just a better feeling as you drive or you're a passenger. And that's before you put anything into the payload area. So the battery, think of the battery like a constant bit of weight in the payload, and it gives you an idea of what the Ranger is like. Picks up plenty of speed, doesn't make too much noise about it, a little bit perhaps. Not as good to drive as the 3-litre petrol that you can get in the Ranger Raptor, but you know, for the job, it has enough power and certainly loads and loads of torque. So really think of it like a diesel Ranger with less CO2 essentially. That's kind of what this version of the Ranger is all about. Iceland, scenery, just breathtaking. Even in, you know, the weather, it's lashing. If I was in Barcelona now, it would be depressing, the fact that it's raining in Barcelona, but I'm not. I'm in Iceland, and it was 8 degrees up in the mountains. I had the hat on. Obviously it'd be better in the sunshine, but the scenery. We saw these areas of the mountains that they convert the springs into, well, steam that then creates electricity in these massive factories. The third biggest one in the world was on our route today. So how they use these renewable resources to power the country is amazing. Reykjavik, also the most northerly capital city in the world, and we're at 66 degrees north for latitude. Oh, and by the way, Icelandic people, they're 40% Irish. So come on! But what a place, really, really good. Scenery, absolutely breathtaking. I've been lucky enough to be in New Zealand many, many years ago, and in some ways it kind of reminded me of that. Dave, who was filming with me, said some parts reminds him of Chile. Just a lovely place. By the way, the turning circle is also not bad in this vehicle. I've had to use that once or twice. So a very easy vehicle to live with. You can just now plug it in, essentially. That's the best way I can sum up the car. And yeah, properly tested off-road today. Didn't miss a beat. Also equally no issue towing. And look, it's obviously been vital that Ford make it a no compromise vehicle in the terms of what the diesel one can do. The revenue and tax rules, that's not necessarily Ford's issue, but for those who might be able to change that, have a think about it. A vehicle that will do a lot of the off-road things that any other version of the Ranger will do, no doubt about it. The interior still is good and reasonably decent to drive, and certainly lots of power and lots of torque in the 2.3. Couple of issues. There is obviously the Maverick, which is not coming to Europe, which would be an interesting vehicle maybe in this lineup. The other thing is, as I mentioned at the outset of the video, the diesel option, getting the VAT back, the payload situation, will that qualify everybody? Or maybe you're someone who doesn't quite need all of the bits of a Ranger, but you just like the idea of one of these vehicles. Then you're someone who probably will suit the PHEV, because it's going to cost a little bit less to buy with our emissions-based system in Ireland. And if you do plug it in every day, or in our case testing perhaps at the end of every job, if there's power, you will be able to run it relatively cheaply. If that range runs out, you're then running a heavy vehicle with a 2.3 petrol engine. So not quite as thirsty as the 3-litre in the Ranger Raptor, but still a thirsty vehicle. So let me know, would it work for your business or not, and what you think of the latest PHEV version of the Ranger. Oh, and come to Iceland if you can someday. Absolutely stunning. Whoever got the job to do a recce from Ford on this one, I'm sure they enjoyed themselves. Thank you very much for coming with me this far today in the video. I'll see you next time.